It's great to be back in South Australia and back at the Bend Motorsport Park for this weekend's round of the Repco Supercars Championship. Practice is all done. We've got Armour All qualifying coming up a little later on today here. Just 120 kilometres to the southeast of Adelaide here in South Australia. Chad Nailon's alongside me, or should it be Chad Happy Gilmore after that putt downstairs before the Repco garage? I was watching that going, I know how lucky you can be. If that went in, you would have brought the house down, but finally some luck went the other way.
Cannot believe that putt did not drop. I'm still filthy about it. Plenty of good golfers in this field as well as we turn our attention to the GTs, newly rebranded. First time we've seen it on the Supercars calendar, but round 3 for their Sprint Championship. And
probably the first time you've seen these guys since the 12 hour, would that be right?
A lot of them, absolutely. Yeah. So some cool new cars have arrived from Europe, a couple new Audis. Everything you love about GT racing is out there. We've got most brands covered. They're not all out there, but there's certainly some attractive cars to look at. Big V8s, we've got V12s, we've got turbo engine cars out there as well, so lots to enjoy as we get ready to line them up for their first 1 hour race of the weekend. They're lining up behind one of the bosses, Yasser Shahin, very quick, but the gap back to Brad Schumacher in qualifying was not that far off like it would normally be. So the field are really condensed. The Audi, a little bit difficult to drive this weekend. We've got Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim, who's going to be sharing a 888 car this weekend with Brock Fenny.
Yep.
They're one guy to watch out for particularly. Stephen Grove sharing with his son. Greg Taylor back in this championship as well. So the AM drivers are in the cars for the start of this race. We're going to see drivers like Garth Tander, Brock Fenny, Dylan O'Keefe hop in at the back half of this race.
Sometime between the 25th and 35th minute mark of this race, which is about to start. In fact, the time has started to count down. Once the cars left the grid, they then continue the countdown. We looked at a great shot, well, maybe not a great shot for the drivers in this, but some dark clouds in the distance. We saw on the radar earlier during the Supercars practice session, the rain coming from the Adelaide Hills right now. We saw a couple of teams rolling the dice out there, getting ready with wets. Perhaps they think it's going to happen inside the first 10 minutes. Now, with the mandatory pit stops that we have, you don't need to change tyres. We haven't had to do it at the first 2 rounds at Phillip Island and at Mount Panorama just a few weeks ago. This could be a complete game changer should that weather arrive.
Yeah, you will be changing tyres.
Absolutely.
Depending on what the weather does. So, word from pit lane is that the Audis have started on wets. Now, that's a bold call because looking at that racetrack right now, it does not look that wet. There are certainly wet patches which they'll be aiming at in the opening stages of this race. But those Pirelli wet tyres will get burnt alive if they're out there too long on a dry track. So they need it to rain, and they've done it preemptively. So they're hoping that rain is going to arrive in the next 5 to 10 minutes. They need it to.
So the 4.95 kilometre circuit that we use here, they've got the big 7.7K International, or the GT circuit that it's called here, that they've used only once back in 2018 when it opened, but do like this configuration. So there's a minimum pit stop time here of 97 seconds. Now, if you finish first, second, or third in your respective class, you get an additional 15, 10, and 5 added to it at your pit stop time. So these carry over from the previous round at Bathurst back at Easter. So for guys like Tony Quinn, he's been given 15 seconds. The McPherson Porter Lamborghini's been given 10. And down the field in the likes of Bates, Shahin, and Ibrahim are all carrying 15, 10, and 5 respectively in this. So a bit to think about. So the aim of the game here is try to get out of here as quick as you can. Hope there's no safety cars and pray there's no rain unless you're an Audi.
Absolutely, they need that rain. This is going to be a really exciting battle. You've got some AM drivers that are going to stay in the car for the whole 1 hour, and then you've got the Pro-Am drivers out there as well. So they're the AM class rankings in there now. The pros are in the sheds waiting to go. So championship leader bringing us to the green flag.
The Fanatec GTWorld Challenge powered by AWS. They're back at the Bend Motorsport Park. This is round number 3. The lights go out and we get underway. In the first race of the weekend, straight away, Shahin will take the lead. Grove will go down the inside, and Brad Schumacher in the Kelso electrical entry from Bathurst about to be slowed up by that big Nissan heading down to turn number 1.
Yeah, Brett Hobson going deep in the GTR as they try and find some room down here. Cold brakes, cold tyres, some on slick, some on wet. It's a real mix as Grove goes for the lead. Couldn't quite make that move. That's Stephen Grove in the car. He'll be handing over to his son Brenton shortly, who was watching on that last practice session for Supercars from the Killigrove Racing team. Brad Schumacher under heavy fire. Now he is leading that AM Championship as well, so in the fight there. So this is precious points up for grabs in round 3.
It's already Schumacher with Hobson for company just behind here, and Greg Taylor, we caught up with in the pits yesterday. The next of the Audis, a whole fleet of Audis, got a couple of brand new ones to fill too, which is good to see. And this series continuing to evolve under the World Challenge, if you will, Stefan Rattel's organisation that's come on board for the 2021 campaign. And now Hobson trying to make the move on the outside. He'll sweep across and get the job done there on Brad Schumacher in the early stage. Of course, Hobson running in the trophy class, only having to do the minimum pit stop time off the track. And just keeps onto it is Bailey, Michael Bailey in car 38. Greasy conditions on the track, lethal if you get off onto the grass.
That was really close, so nice save. Kept it in there. Difficult conditions as well out there for Jeffrey Ibrahim in that 888 Mercedes. Cool to have 888 racing in this championship. And his third different driver pairing for the season so far as he works his way through the pro ranks at T8. So he's had Jamie Whincup for round 1, then Shane Van Gisbergen at Bathurst where they won a thriller. And now he's taken on Brock Feeney. Hobson switching to the inside, loses one of those winglets off the front of the GTR, so just misjudged the giant length of the bonnet. He's got so much speed and momentum right now as Shaheen goes looking for some water. Hobson going to go out on a limb here and say potentially on slick tyres, judging by the speed and where he's driving that car. Anybody left is on wet tyres. You can only guess as they kick up some of the debris that's been dropped from the previous sessions. Hobson to the lead now in turn number 1. So the big Nissan on the charge. It's got a really different, unique sound to it. From our commentary box, you can definitely tell when it goes past here. If this race stays dry, there's the little winglet that came off, carbon fibre, part of the Nissan. If this race stays dry until the pit stop window opens at the 25-minute mark, Hobson is absolutely on. Yeah. He is going to have a giant lead the way things are going. Let's check out some replays of the start. Follow your pit box across. And then once you get to the start line, unleash the ponies and the fight from the start. Hobson had the confidence already on slick tyres, dry track to go around the outside. We didn't see him at Bathurst earlier this year, but picked up the win in race 2 at Phillip Island at the opening round back in March. More replays down here. Those tyres just need a real workout heading into turn number 1. What I've noticed from the first 2 rounds is how busy the race gets straight away. Here's what happens, that little winglet on the front of this as he made contact. Well, I wouldn't say slight, it was a fairly, it's more than slight, an expensive hit. And I wonder if it was part of the rear diffuser as well on the Grove car that came off. This will give us a pretty good look at it. Just watch the under tray of the Porsche. Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. So that will affect the rear aerodynamics on the Grove Porsche for sure. I think the GTR got away with that relatively okay. They're such a big, robust car. We saw that at the 12-hour over the years. The Bentley and the Nissan were always the strong, robust cars. They could almost push around a little bit like a touring car. Yeah. Typically, GT3 cars are incredibly fragile. Jeffrey Ibrahim already got the headlights flashing here in that Johor Motor Racing 888 engineered Mercedes-Benz on the back of Taylor, who's up into 4th position at 2nd in the GT3 class right now. So early stages, and again, Shaheen goes out searching for moisture. And again, the wind has picked up. It's a tailwind heading down the straight. They need rain. They desperately need rain. Do you want to start dancing? I don't know. These tyres are just not going to make it to the pit stop window if it stays dry. This is probably borderline right now. Really, they need it to be soaked off the racing line. It's pretty much dry everywhere else around the course except on the main straight. And that's the radar. So it's coming across the Adelaide Hills to the top of that. But being a local, 9 times out of 10, it fizzles out by the time it gets here because it's going across the Adelaide Hills, which are high in the sky. But you never know. We did get a shower this morning with nothing on the radar, so true. Time will tell. So the Audis who have gone out on a wet tyre, desperate for some precipitation right now. As Prince Jeffrey goes toe-to-toe with Greg Taylor. We're on the back part of the circuit. Typically on a slick tyre through here, it's incredibly quick. So across the top and into the backside of the circuit, we're just getting into this race. Someone that loved the wake-up call this morning, the sound of rattle guns. Charlie Robinson's down in pit lane.
Who doesn't love the sound of rattle guns, can I just say? It's the best sound in the world. Davey Reynolds, your team owner's out there, Stephen Grove. What advice have you given him before the race?
I just said don't stuff it up. Hold it flat till you see God, then just back it off a little.
You like racing a Porsche? Could we ever see you out there?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to have a go. That's one of the coolest cars in the country right at the minute. He's doing a good job. I think he's 3rd at the minute. He's got a bit of a gap to 4th. But, yeah, he's on a different strategy to the rest of the guys. I think he's running wets when most of the other people are slick, so we'll see how he goes.
Very good. I love watching Brenton as well. It's almost like he's racing when he's watching, he's heckling. I love it. Here they go. Thanks, Dave. Enjoy the race.
All right, thanks.
Plenty going on at turn 17 as well. Thank you, Charlie. Some more carbon fibre bouncing down the road. This scrap is absolutely on. As now, Stephen Grove's under heavy fire from Ibrahim. And I'm getting the feeling that that Mercedes is on a slick tyre. Triple Eight, very good at playing those games.
Yep.
So wets versus slicks. Wet piece of racetrack for Stephen Grove to aim at, but the slick tyre is going to win out here for sure. Now that the tyre temperatures come up, Prince Jeffrey's got a little bit more confidence under his brake pedal.
Michael Bailey was just in the pits then, and that's not his mandatory stop, so clearly after going off the course, there might be some issues with his number 38, but he'll have to perform another pit stop. That drops him down to 19th position and a lap down with just under 50 minutes remaining. There he is, just being passed by Taylor. They'll be right in a very busy pack as Tony Quinn goes down the inside of Tony Bates. And around is Bailey, right in front of our top three cars.
That was an awkward one down at the hairpin. And can he get the big Aston Martin fired up and get it out of there? It's sitting in a very awkward position. How did this all transpire? We saw the end of it. We nearly had head-to-head Aston Martins here for a moment. Great evasive driving from Tony Quinn.
I wonder if he went to slicks and found that wet patch on the outside down there, but probably should have waited to the window. You're going to definitely hit down there. It's definitely nothing wet down there. It's just contact from the Audi of Brad Schumacher just behind. So Carl Reindler, who's overlooking this race next door, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll hear from race control should there be any penalties applied. There he is, he's back on the circuit, but a hint of smoke from his Aston Martin.
Brad Schumacher will be pretty frustrated with that. Reason being is there potentially could have been blue flags waved down there at that time. As he's come out of the pits, he is a lap down at that point, and he is the AM championship leader. So that could have championship ramifications for sure. He already lost 1 or 2 spots from how that all transpired. Hobson is out to a 20-second lead.
And 2 seconds quicker than everybody else around right now. So remember, he's only got the minimum pit stop time to take on, 97 seconds. If you look at Ibrahim, they've got to do 107. So already, it's almost a 30-second advantage just there.
He's going to finish half a lap ahead at this stage if it stays dry.
And that's a big if.
Again, the rain will be a game changer. The problem is the wet tyre has already done 4 to 5 laps on a dry circuit. So if it was to rain, it might not be in such good condition after being absolutely punished out there in these dry conditions. So it may be even too late for the rain to arrive for some of those guys who are on the wet tyres. But we've seen these Audis fall back through the pack. Tony Bates back all the way to 9th. So for Dylan O'Keefe, who's sharing, taking that car over this weekend, as we look at now the Bostic number 24, has been Chaz Mostert driving that car throughout the course of the year. Dylan O'Keefe ably stepping in, had a test day as well to come up to speed. He's got quite a bit of work to do on what will be very used wet tyres.
So early stages, just under 47 minutes to go. 19 seconds is the gap from Hobson back to Ibrahim. Another 9 seconds back to Yasser Shaheen, will hand over the keys to Garth Tander sometime between the 25th and 35th minute mark. You don't take on fuel during these pit stops. You can change tyres, not a compulsory, but I've got a feeling there'll be several Audis switching over very, very soon. Even if they do hold on, they're going to have to get rid of these wet tyres. They'd be feeling pretty sad right now.
You know what's going to be really cool? The second half of this race, where you've got Brock Feeney trying to chase down Brett Hobson and the better part of what will be almost a half a minute to make up in about half an hour. So that'll be quite interesting to see if he can rattle off a second a lap to try and catch him at the front of this pack. But again, weather pending at this stage as to how this is all going to play out. Hobson out to a very handy 19-second lead over Ibrahim.
And only 8 cars carrying a co-driver out in this weekend's round. Second race to come up tomorrow, we'll see the pro drivers starting that based on the results of this race. So a bit simpler to explain than what it's been in recent years in the Fanatec GTWorld Challenge.
Look at these Audis trying to find some moisture.
You wouldn't dare get near that grass right now either, not the speeds these cars are carrying down towards turn number 1, but that line of damp track is starting to really dry up now. We look at Mick Kelly, car 99, the industry Mercedes-Benz. Running in 6th position right now. There's Grove going through the shot. Here comes Tony Bates. And off the track one of the Audis trying to pick up. That's the final turn, so just before pit entry. I've got a feeling that's the number 3 Audi of Constantinides who joins the field. It is, and that might be enough, but a really bad time if we get a safety car at the final turn. This will tell us the story on his own. It's such a fast corner. We've stood down there the first couple of years. The speed they carry through that last turn. And lots of runoff here. Very rarely do you see a car make contact with the tyre walls. There's that much runoff here at the Bend Motorsport Park. We're hearing there's drops of rain in the area, and the safety car is called. Not a good time. We're still 9 minutes before we get to that point.
Poor Brett Hobson. Look at the lead he has. He's got the entire front straight, and he's watching it disappear. A 19-second lead gone with that Audi parked in the gravel. It's one of the new Audis just arrived from Europe as well. So that's devastating for the Nissan that was on a complete mission, and the gap from second back to third was pretty big as well. Charlie, what's the latest from the pits?
The faces that you see jumping into cars around here. This is a man called Garth Tander. You're jumping in with the track owner, Yasser Shahin. He's looking pretty good in 5th right now.
Yeah, we gambled a bit though. It started on wets because Neil Crompton's been talking in commentary about this big weather front that's been coming, so we put wets on. That was the wrong way to go. So it's just started spitting, but we lost a lot of time at the start. So the Merc's on slicks, we're on wets. I think pretty much all the Audis are on wets, but yeah, now I've got a safety car to close the gap back up, and it has started raining, so Neil, thanks for the advice. So we'll see what happens in the next phase.
Do you like not starting, or are you as a driver just thinking, come on, I just can't wait to get in the car?
No, well, I'll start tomorrow. The way the regs are, the AMs start today, so Yasser starts today, and then I start tomorrow, and Yasser will finish the race. So we get it, you know, shares it around, get a bit of love. So it's good. So I get in the car, what is it now? 11:51, 9 minutes I get in the car. So this safety car will probably restart, and then pit stops will start.
Looking so relaxed, you'd think you'd done this before.
I've done a lap or two around here.
Have fun out there, Garth.
Thank you.
I was out here testing just a couple of weeks ago, and the car's completely different to what it was then. They were struggling yesterday during the 2 qualifying sessions, both Shahin and Tander, the Bend Motorsport Park Valvoline Audi. There's a shot. The weather will be coming to the right of the screen as the fans continue to arrive. It's such a big venue here. There's a lot of people here today, a lot of people camping, and it's now starting to feel like a racetrack. The first couple of years we were here, it was just finding its feet, but each time we come back here to the Bend Motorsport Park, there's improvements every time, and well done to Shahin family for this impressive race facility just an hour outside of Adelaide.
So what this BP Ultimate Safety Car really means is that all of the pro drivers who were waiting to take over the car have been given a massive free kick.
Absolutely.
Because for many of them, including Garth Tander, he had the better part of 30 seconds to make up on the race leader, which again, after the pit stops, would have been even bigger. All of that evaporates now behind the safety car. So in these races, if the AM start, the safety car comes out before the pit stop window, it's advantage to the pro drivers, and that's exactly what we've seen here today as we check out another shot of that brand new latest spec Audi slipping off. It's the Audi R8 LMS Evo, so the latest version. We're into, I don't know, version 4 or 5 of these Audis that have been slowly released since about 2009, 2010 we started to see them come out.
Had the LMS, then the LMS Ultra, now the Evo joins the series, so it'll take a few laps. Constantinides, who makes a debut in the category with that car this weekend, will go a couple of laps down at least. So with Hobson, Ibrahim, Tony Quinn leading the AM class right now and 3rd outright. Rosser runs in 4th position, then Shahin. There's the viewing deck and the top of this building, which gives you pretty much a view of the entire circuit, right back to the GT circuit across the horizon. Got a chance for the track crew to retrieve some of this debris. They won't be able to keep this as souvenirs, by the way. The teams will quickly get hold of this. Wet tyres on standby down here at 888 Race Engineering, Johor Motor Racing, a joint effort for this year's series.
Now we're well ahead of the pit stop window, so this would be strictly because of the weather. And in comes the Mercedes AMG.
He's still going to have to do the stop once he's done this. So this is a gamble. They must think it's right on us.
Well, they're doing it because they've got the advantage of being able to do it behind the safety car. So he's going to lose a ton of track position pitting from what was second in the race, but it's better than having to do it once they go back to a green flag in a lap or two. So you can see the method behind their madness, but they would have been just hoping that they could have got to the pit stop window opening before it rained. It was a gamble that very nearly paid off. There are 2 mechanics to go to work. They're going to work at opposite corners of the car. Pirelli tyres. New set of wets going on. They cannot do their driver change yet. They have to only do that driver change during the compulsory pit stop window, which opens at the 25-minute mark, so still a few minutes away. Slicks off. The Slicks did the job in the early part of that race, able to get Ibrahim up to second. This is confusing. Where's the wheel nut gone? They haven't changed all 4 tyres. I don't think they've done the left rear yet. They can't find a wheel nut. Here we go. It's got one. And we're good. That was strange. Lucky that all happened under safety car conditions. Imagine how much time they would have lost if that was a green flag stop.
And a good move also to put these wet tyres on, to take the new... You can hear
is that Roland barking orders in the background? There he is over the left. He is furious with how this is transpiring. This is very un-Triple 8, I have to say. The slickest in the lane, and he is storming off. Whoa. Someone is going to cop it for that one. You get the feeling Roland unimpressed.
Yep, plenty fired up as he rejoins.
Oh, he's crossed the blend line as well.
They were warned about this during practice yesterday. Several drivers got the hand smacked for crossing that solid line on the exit. You've got to follow it down the blend line before coming out. Let's see if we can have a listen in here.
Just keep the heat in it. So let's swap that gun out.
So if there's a positive out of this chat, if you're going to mess the pit stop, that's the one to do it in.
Absolutely, do it under safety car.
But they will not like that. Roland Dane will not be happy with what's gone on. Let's have a look once again, the replay. Let's have a listen.
Angry team boss down there at Triple 8, walking to the back of the garage. Now there's a chance here for them to at least catch the back of the train and get onto this again.
The way it's going, we should be going back to green flag racing just as that window opens. Charlie?
Brock Feeney, you just did an early pit. What was the reason for that one?
Yeah, so we started the race on slick tyres. We thought while the safety car's out, we'll take the chance to put the wets on. It looks like it's about to rain now, and we've still got about 5 minutes or 3 minutes till I'm allowed to jump in the car. So it was touch and go whether we do it under a safety car or run it longer. So we just took the chance to pit now and put wets on.
Wasn't the smoothest of pit stops, but all seems pretty calm out here now.
Yeah, certainly didn't go to plan, but you know, we've caught the back of the train now. So yeah, Jeffrey's got a few laps to go, and I'll jump in and bring it home.
Yeah, sounds great. We're looking forward to seeing you out there. Have fun, Brock.
Cheers, thank you.
Third different co-driver in that car in as many rounds this year. We started with Jamie Whincup at the Phillip Island round. Shane Van Gisbergen jumped into the car at Bathurst, continued that unbeaten streak, didn't he? Up there, and now Brock Feeney, who's part of the Triple 8 race engineering team, gets his chance in a few minutes' time. We go back to green flag racing with just under 37 minutes remaining in the race, and 2 minutes before the pit stop window opens. Cars on the left, well, they're on the wet tyres, and Hobson is going to try and make 10 to 15 seconds perhaps in the first few laps. Big, tough water.
Oh, Shaheen's got the rear of that Audi dancing down there at turn 1. Very close to the side of the Mercedes-AMG. The sky is grey, dark grey in the background. Surely that rain is not too far away. It'll be relief for those out there on a wet Pirelli tyre, particularly in the Mercedes that we just saw come in. So despite all of that time lost in the pits, it didn't account for a single second on the racetrack in the end because they were able to catch the train. So the advantage of doing that pit stop under safety car conditions, just procedurally, I think Roland was so angry with how it played out, despite the fact that they got away with it. But they may not get away with crossing the blend line, which is that hard line at the exit of pit lane. So there'll be more to talk about there.
Remember, they'll carry an extra 10 seconds with their compulsory pit stop. When that happens soon, they come back out on the track. What are they up to now? In 16th position on the course. And now some raindrops on the screen. It's around the backside of the circuit towards turns 11 and 12. Tony Bates going past Greg Taylor now. With some pretty second-hand Pirelli wet tyres coming off at this next stop. This might play right into the hands of these guys as well. And you can see it's like it's skating on ball bearings through that right-hander there at turn 13.
So remember, these cars are on old wet tyres, and they are completely run in at this stage. Overheated, hot. worn and desperate to come in and be changed over, or at least get some rain out there to try and cool them off once again. But rain isn't going to be that sweet a relief for them at the moment. There's also that moment that we had earlier between Schumacher and Bailey that'll play out at some point with Carl Reynolds, like you mentioned, who's the driving standards advisor this weekend. It's been a thoroughly entertaining 25 minutes. Pit window will be opening imminently. Now, I haven't seen it open up yet on timing, but we are seeing Tony Bates dive through to pit lane. We have ticked over that 25-minute marker. And that is an unusual way to park in your pit bay.
Yeah, normally they come in parallel with the line, or the lane in this case. But Dylan O'Keefe getting set to jump out. They've got the time on their side.
Now, the window has officially opened on timing. Did this car come in before the window opened? It was after the 25-minute marker, but do you have to wait until it is officially announced on timing? That'll be a talking point.
Well, I would take it as insight, have anything different from race control at this stage. So Dylan O'Keefe jumps in.
They haven't changed tyres on that car either. Now, Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim back in. The son of the Sultan of Johor jumps out.
Have to say, watching this young guy drive this car in the first 2 rounds, he's never seen these courses before. His drive at Bathurst was very, very cool indeed. He's going to be based here for the entire season with the 888 team. He's spending time on the Gold Coast and really learning the tracks on a racing simulator. As much as that helps, it really learns only to drive the course, not to understand the characteristics of it all. Brock Feeney jumps in. We'll see him later in the year in a wild card with Russell Ingall at Bathurst. So he jumps in for the 888. Away goes Dylan O'Keefe.
I don't think they changed tyres on that Audi, from what I could tell. So that's going to be a pretty loose stint coming up now.
Here you go, Dylan.
For Dylan O'Keefe. Those are dry tyres. Sorry, those are wet tyres. They probably look like dry tyres now, that have done the better part of 26 minutes on a dry racetrack.
There he is, so he'll get ahead.
So that is still a fair weight, isn't it, now on top of that?
That's 90 seconds, so they need 107. So Garth Tander waits out the front, so they're the first box, I would say, on the left-hand side when they come in off the pit apron.
Garth was just making sure that none of the equipment was over the prescribed point in pit lane where you can get penalised. So just making sure that everyone's on edge down there at the moment at Melbourne Performance Centre and ready for these pit stops. More stops happen now. Brenton Grove will change over to Steve. Here comes Yasser Shahin.
And it's just a 10-minute window as well. Remember, the laps have been around 1 minute 50, so you've really got to be accurate at picking this. Some will try and wait for the weather to arrive before they come in, but they don't want to be outside that 10-minute window and score themselves a pit lane penalty. Grove car comes into the pits on the right-hand side. Brenton Grove about to jump in behind this brand new Porsche that debuted at Phillip Island. Up close, this car is amazing.
So father and son combination. They are doing tyres for Garth Tander. So that Audi started on wets. It looked like they were putting wets on it as well. I've never seen so many wet tyres thrown at a dry track before. Just everyone's expecting it to rain, but it's just not coming.
The wind's not strong enough out there at the moment, which is unusual because it's a very windy...
I'd love to see the state of those wets that came off that car. They'll be looking like Lewis Hamilton's tyres at the end of the Turkish Grand Prix last year.
Be a set of slicks for tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. The good news is we've got an extra set of slicks for tomorrow's race now.
2 sets of tyres allowed for the weekend as the crew. This is the McPherson iMac Porsche. Ben Porter should be jumping in behind the wheel. Gary Higgin is also in pit lane. He's been sharing that car with Paul Stokell this year as well. Great to have Paul back in motor racing. 3-time Australian Drivers' Champion back in the 90s. And a super talent.
So there goes Hobson to lap the field, just about. Still to do his pit stop. So he's lapped all the way up to Garth Tander, who's still making his way down out of the lane. It's going to get a little confusing for a while with those who have pitted and those who haven't, because the pit stop times are so long. It's extremely easy to lose the lead lap, but that'll all wash out over the course of the next 5 minutes before that pit stop window closes. But everything you're seeing right now at the moment is for position. Apart from the giant yellow local legends Aston Martin, that's in the middle of this, yet to pit.
With 3 generations of Quinn, didn't we? The Aussie racing cars at Simmons Plains. Young rider making his debut in motor racing. And there's the radar again. So it's stretching out, but
try as it might, it just will not rain out there.
The red and yellow is probably going to go past Murray Bridge, if anything, in between.
And the advantage, Matt, that the drivers who are in a solo race here, say the race leader, Hobson, for example, is they can go right to the end of the window to see what the weather's going to do. But if you're in a two-driver team, you want to get your pro in there as soon as possible, so you pit at the beginning of the pit window.
Yes.
But then you lose 10 minutes of visibility on the weather to know what's going to happen. So it's a really interesting way of playing it out. Now it's swung back the favour, and the momentum is swung back towards the amateur drivers who are driving solo, because they have a chance now to see what this weather is going to do before the pit stop window closes in the next 5 minutes.
And Hobson knows it's go time now. He's going to set his fastest lap of the race. His margin back to Rosser, who's in second, is 11 seconds right now. We'll get a understanding of the guys that have pitted very soon on how far they are back. And it should start to play out for us very soon. We're still 4 minutes. There's Arthur Abrahams in the pits. Car number 91 driving solo. That car had a hit in the wall at Solomon Park at the last round at Bathurst.
Arthur did a lot of racing back in the 80s and early 90s and spent a lot of time away from the sport. So he's got that new love of racing back again.
World Sports Car Championship starts as well, and even a couple of Indy Lights races in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh, Brenton Grove, that's tight. This is really tight and a push and a shove as Quinn gets barreled out high and dry by the big AMG. So that was pretty aggressive stuff from Nick Kelly moving through. That was for third position at the time. And Brenton in the middle is technically down a lap on both of them, as he's already had his pit stop. This is a fascinating race with the weather and how it's all playing out. But despite all the games going on, you still have to do this, which is race for position.
Wow.
And keep your pace up and grab a spot when you can get it. That's exactly what Nick Kelly did. It was a long way up on the inside of that Aston Martin.
Tony Quinn wasn't the winner of that battle. Gets a donut ring down the side of his local legends Aston Martin Vantage in turn number 1. Great spot to watch the cars on how quick they come into turn number 1. That's through turn 3 we go. Just under 28 minutes remaining. And less than 3 minutes to go in the pit stop window, with Hobson leading out to 13 seconds to Rosser, a further 11 back to Nick Kelly. It's in the pits as Michael Bailey. Remember, he pitted earlier in the race, but had to do a second one because it was outside the window.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but had Triple Eight known that it was going to stay dry for another 10 minutes when they came in to throw those wet tyres on, they were already on a slick. So they would still be sitting in second before their pit stop window opened, and Feeney would have had a little bit more track up his sleeve. But again, it might still rain. So Brett Hobson, first of the cars yet to have pitted, and had such a lead when the pit stop window opened that he should be enough with the shorter pit stop time to go back into the lead after his pit stop.
He's only got 97 seconds to do. We're looking at O'Keefe as effectively your race leader at the moment with the cars.
I wouldn't call him so much the effective race leader as at least first to have pitted.
First to have pitted, yeah.
They weren't leading when the pit stop window opened. And we're still waiting to see where Moridi and the rest of these guys who are coming out of pit lane right now are going to slot in. But here is Hobson. Again, back out to a 15-second advantage. And we'll have a sizable gap before this pit stop window closes. He'll be a lap or two at most away from making the pit stop, because that pit stop window is closing in about 90 seconds time.
It's sound all of its own, hasn't it, as it weaves its way through turn 11 and 12. This 4.9 kilometre course, and Tony Quinn's down the lane. Tesoriero and Brad Schumacher are just about to leave. And Hobson continuing to go fast, 152.29 on the previous lap. 16 seconds is the margin. Jim Moorcast coming out the pits. That's Constantinides in the back, and here comes the Triple Eight Mercedes down to turn number 1. Still praying for rain with those wet tyres on. You see the way the car skated under brakes in the turn 1.
Has the wipers on, so that's a good sign. Maybe trying to will it to rain. If I put my wipers on, maybe that'll convince it to rain.
That's the rain. Cars
here we go.
Rain dance. Well, that's the best way to check. When the fans put the umbrellas up, we know that there's water in the air.
So this is what I was saying earlier, Matt, about the drivers who stayed out there to get to the end of the pit stop window. Now it started to rain right at the end of the window. So if there's ever a time to throw the wet set of tyres on, it's now. So Hobson may have got away with 35 minutes on the dry tyre as Feeney just about overcooks it down there and loses a spot to the Audi. They're going to go side by side through a very fast part of the track. and the AMG prevails.
Not for position, of course, with Constantinides at least 3 laps down in the race.
And here we go, the leader is in.
All right, so they're going to wets. 2 crew across the line. Keep an eye where Brock Feeney is. Feeney's around at turn 12. And still praying for that rain. We'll keep an eye on what's coming off the 96 Nissan. Impressive run. Slicks come off and then the wets will go on. For the due diligence to take off the sticker that's marked on there from Pirelli when they distributed to the teams. And the Garth Walden team really are working hard to get this car out. Remember, 97 seconds. The 888 car, the extra 10 seconds during their pit stop. Yours still on O'Keefe in car 24. Remember, he didn't change tyres. So these tyres are sadder than the others around him.
Yeah, and the wets. 35 minutes of dry running on a wet tyre is not something that any brand of wet tyre will enjoy. And he's having to drive this car very straight and smooth to just not completely blow the rubber off it. So, a difficult day for Dylan O'Keefe to do his job. And as a result, he's got the iMac Lambo all over the back of him.
Ben Porter behind the wheel of that car now. He's been teamed up with McPherson for a few years now. They raced in Asia on several occasions. And
here comes Hobson out of the pits. And with that shorter pit stop time, have a look at the lead he's got over O'Keefe, who's still working his way around the middle section of the track. So, giant lead again here for Hobson, who's now completed the pit stop. I wonder what tyre they went to, though. Didn't quite get a chance to see that. Did they go to a set of wets on the Nissan? I believe it was a wet, from what we can tell.
so here comes O'Keefe, just said Porter. We saw that battle just a few moments ago. Hobson has rejoined. His stop is done.
So if you're 20 seconds behind the race leader at this point, and the race leader has gone to a wet tyre, would you chance it at putting a dry tyre on? You'll be substantially quicker until it rains.
He's still got nearly 23 minutes to go in the race. So he's got the wipers on now. Raindrops on the lens of the camera as he works through turns 8, 9 and 10. A bit like the Turkish Grand Prix track through there, just the opposite direction.
Fitting, given the scenario that we had play out when we saw a return to Formula One in Turkey last year.
Very true.
Only it was the opposite. It was wet-dry, not dry-wet. Just like that corner runs in the opposite direction. Rights instead of lefts. And again, he needs to try and look after this wet tyre on the dry road until he's able to light it up. There's Barry Hay sticking his head in for a chat with Pappas, who's hopped into this car. It looks like they're retiring this car. Or it's a very slow driver change. You can confirm that the Nissan is out there on wet tyres, and this is a new car that's just arrived. So game over, unfortunately, for both of those new cars that have come into the country. Here's the other one, right on cue. Second time at that corner.
Yeah, see the gravel from the previous incident that Constantinides had. 19th and last, 3 laps down as the race leader rounds him up. 42 seconds is the margin back to Quinn now. Another 2 seconds to Porter. And O'Keefe, 49 seconds away with 21.5 minutes remaining. The Fanatec GTWorld Challenge powered by AWS, the third round of this new era of GT competition in Australia. They'll have another 1 hour race to come tomorrow. There's still a long way to play out. It looks like it's wetter down at the bottom part of the circuit, turns 1, 2 and 3. Anyway, judging by our camera lenses, and like I referred to Garth Tander earlier today during Super, it's such a big track that this end of the track was wet, but turns 17 and 18 was almost flooded down there.
Yeah, I'd be really keen to know some lap times next time by. So compare the leader, who has a 41-second lead over Tony Quinn. The pro guys are buried back in 4th and 5th at the moment. O'Keefe 4th, Tander 5th. And Feeney a long way back in 15th after they lost all that track position, now 14th in the pit stop window. This is tight. Fight for position, fight for second.
Here's 2 from race control. Nick Kelly's going to receive a penalty for missing the minimum pit stop window by 5 seconds.
Ouch.
At the end. And under investigation is the contact between Kelly and Quinn down at the bottom turn.
Okay. Nothing yet about the blend line. rejoin?
No, and Brad Schumacher's also got the penalty for that contact with Bailey earlier in the race. So that's coming through from Carl Reindler, Motorsport Australia Race Control. So
That's unlucky because he was down a lap at that point. So
Yeah.
he's turned a lapper around and got pinged for it. Very rarely do you hear of that.
it's putting down to 11th position outright. The Tesserero Audi in the pits and out of this one. So Constantinides will move up one spot. There's Bailey around again.
It's a hard day.
And look at the dirt and debris that's back on the circuit now, which there'll be some supercar drivers, Charlie, keeping a keen eye on this one because qualifying follows this.
Absolutely, we certainly are. But Vince, you know what? Motorsport has highs and lows, and we've just experienced a low. The cars had to retire. What was the issue?
Just gearbox temperature. Grabbed the gear and we couldn't get it out, and we tried. That's it. End of the day.
Let's
Back tomorrow.
exactly fix her up and get back here tomorrow.
Thank you, love.
Test and development for that car continues on, so they'll be back another 60 minutes for them tomorrow. Second and third, so the IMAC Lamborghini in a good position right now. That car starting today's race from the tail of the field in 19th position. And leading the AM class at the moment, Hobson on the back of Arthur Abrahams here down at the turn 6 hairpin. Comfortably in control of this race by nearly 40 seconds. Abrahams has a spin in the Cannon Foods Audi. And that drops him down to 15th position. Maybe 16th now with Grove going past. It is. Here it is on the replay down at turn number 6.
Right in front of the leader, so very nervous moment for Hobson. On top of that, he's just lost 4 seconds of that race lead, a juicy race lead it was. And he'll be just so desperate to not see the safety car in this race, because if we do get a safety car, it's going to put all the pro drivers in his mirror, or in this case, his video screen that they do have in these cars, in GT3 cars.
Hope it didn't freeze up.
Reverse cameras.
So on our screens now.
He needs to.
Sorry to jump in over the top. That black flag to been shown to car 99. Nick Kelly's come in. He's been given a pit lane penalty plus the 102 seconds on top. So that's really hit him. Missed the window by 5 seconds.
That's harsh.
5 seconds.
But did have a 10-minute window in which to pit. But the reason why they were staying out that long was they were just so desperate to try and see what the weather was doing. Here's Hobson scything through this field. Has lapped up to roughly 13th. And is going to pick off 1 or 2 more.
The battle's going to be for second and third here right now. It's only 3 seconds in the AM class between Porter and Quinn. Porter taking over from Andrew McPherson as Hobson starts to pick his way through. That's car 67, Bill Papadimitriou. A nervous time, and it's looking likely that it's raining down at turn number 3.
Now through.
At 17 minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's quite a while to go here. Trying to get Stokel down a lead lap here as well. Around the outside of the KFC car to peel back. So this is now lapping up to 11th, if he can get it done. Paul Stokel trying to make this as difficult as possible, which is we love our American racing, fighting to stay on the lead lap. I can't see any blue flags. So he's going to have to earn this one.
Won't do anything through this section. Too fast and too many turns.
That 40-second lead is down to 31 seconds. He's lost 10 seconds in roughly 2 or 3 laps. So that lead is starting to disappear.
But remember, those guys are going to have to fight the lap traffic as well. It's a big chunk to lose in the space of 2 laps. Nick Kelly has rejoined the track. They'll add that time on to the end of his race as well. In the background is the GT circuit. It was constructed here, part of this build back in 2018 when the venue opened. So here's Ben Porter.
And he is peeling that gap away. So he's been decisive through the traffic. So I think that's where a lot of this gap is being lost right now between Hobson and Porter. Porter doing a really good job peeling his way up the field and through the traffic. Now 30 seconds behind. I really want to compare some lap times, but the problem is the gap is so big that by the time second place gets to the finish line, he's already gone through sector 1, so it's making it very hard to compare lap times.
And not just that, Hobson responded at the previous lap there too. 3 seconds he clawed back alone in the second sector. Now he's cleared through the lap traffic.
Okay, there we go, 2:05 for the leader. So let's watch what the iMac Lamborghini can do, and it might give us a bit of an idea as to how much more of this lead he can peel back as he continues to reign at turn 17.
15 minutes to go in this race. We'll keep an eye on this time as he comes around to complete another lap. They start the 18th lap of this 60-minute race.
Just want to see what the lap time is here, 2:05 compared to 2:08, so it's now gone back in the favour of the leader. Charlie.
Stephen Grove, I've just watched you hovering at the wall then. Were you checking out something on the car there, or what's going on?
No, listen, we started on wets, which was a bit of an issue because it was dry, and then I've just seen how Brent's progressing. We had to come in and repit again because we went back from wets back to dries now, and now it's starting to rain, so maybe I'm not sure if that's the right strategy, but yeah, we struggled here today a bit in strategy.
It's all right. It's been, is it dry? Is it wet? No one knows what tyres they're putting on. We can come back tomorrow and have some more fun.
That's all it's about. Coming back, having some fun. I look forward to it.
Conditions much more favourable for tomorrow's race, but this is like a classic European-style day for GT racing.
It is, and it is a long circuit, typical of European racing as well.
So there is the Grove Porsche, about to go a lap down here in 12th position. And still, he hasn't got past Stokel, so these two are arguing over position. Hobson needs to get this past because the gap might sit at 34 seconds. Awkward place to do it. He gets past one, so we split these two lap cars.
Oh, bit of a rub. He's getting pretty angry, isn't he, the race leader?
It's the second time.
That's the second time those two cars have hit each other in this race. So no blue flags, having to move through the pack himself, maybe move one or two cars himself. And now he has broken free. So again, that little left front winglet missing. The wet conditions probably helping that. Second time today these two cars have made contact. Unloading the back of that Porsche. That was a little bit further around the track.
He's evened it out now. And about 300 metres back from the last corner. So he's past the lap cars and can breathe for a moment. This was happening down at turn number 6. So this was before we picked up the live shot.
Oh, not again.
Not again. He's 3 times. Picked him up like a front-end loader coming through turn number 6.
These three, that's 3 times for the same two cars in the one race. And one of the AMGs has gone skating off.
That's Vince Marini, who's come into the pits after that off in the Mercedes-Benz, and he's brought the gravel trap back with him. And that won't just be the only part of the car that will have gravel. They'll be finding that for weeks.
Those who rolled the dice on trying to get a slick tyre to the end, unfortunately now coming unstuck. It is officially too slippery for a slick, and the decision to throw a wet tyre, well, the correct strategy in this race was slick at the start, wet at the end, and that's exactly what they've got out of the Hobson car so far. So well done on picking the lotto numbers today. It is now pouring down and is officially a wet track, and that lead has stayed steady at 37 seconds despite the traffic. Quinn back in the pits. The two-stop strategy is not what you want today.
Now remember, there's no hold time here. Once the pit stop's done, they can go. They've completed their mandatory stop.
And the Lamborghini that was second and closing also in a slick tyre. So that's why that gap has ballooned from 30 seconds back to 38. They needed it to stay dry, and they may just have caught the back of that Nissan, but it wasn't to be. There's still 12 minutes to go in this motor race, so I can't see that Lamborghini staying out there on slicks if it stays like this.
No way could make the pace back anyways. The wets go on, the local Legends car. He was third outright. Now puts O'Keefe up into third position on the 24 car. Well, Hobson's gap is out to 40 seconds.
So some of the pros are starting to move up now. This has been good news for O'Keefe and Tander. O'Keefe all over the back of Porter. This is the fight for second. And the Bostik Audi is on wet tyres, albeit very old wet tyres. Tander behind him on new wet tyres, although their balance hasn't been favourable so far this weekend. Garth told us a car that isn't great in dry conditions doesn't magically get better in the wet. So I think it's going to be a difficult drive for Garth to get home, despite the fact that he's on new wet rubber. So Hobson, O'Keefe, Porter the top 3. But at what point will that Lamborghini pit? Surely he can't get 11 minutes in these conditions on slick tyres.
And look at the difference on the main straight to that last shot we just had as Brock Feeney appears from the fog almost down to turn number 1. Triple Eight car running back in 10th position. Well, Hobson sits at 42 seconds. Question mark next to the Lamborghini that runs in third. And Tander just 9 seconds behind the iMac Lamborghini. We're just over 10 minutes away from the finish. of race 1, the third round of this year's Fanatec GT World Challenge here at the Bend Motorsport Park. A lot to play out in these changeable conditions.
Good experience this weekend for Brock Feeney to get some GT3 laps. Look at this car fishtailing from the exit of turn 6 all the way up through 7, and this long sweeping run of turn 8, 9 and 10. Wet tyres, without question, the choice that you want to be on now. And a lot of these guys have been in the pits 2, sometimes 3 times for the Grove & Grove Porsche.
Yeah.
So they pitted before, during and after the pit stop window. Not much water's on the road now. But again, these tyres that Hobson is on now, he did throw these on during the pit stop, but they did have 10 to 15 minutes of running on dry conditions, so they won't be perfect wet tyres.
In good condition compared to the 24 Audi behind him, though.
100%. So let's compare some lap times next time by and see how much speed they've lost. He was doing 204s, 205s before the rain started to come down. Out of the last corner, how much lap speed have we lost out there in these wet conditions? 9 minutes to go, still plenty of race for this to unfold, particularly if we got a late safety car, and it's a 2:07.6.
So maybe 3 to 4 laps left in this race. Hobson 2:07. We wait nearly 45 seconds for O'Keefe to come around. Let's look at that newly installed OTR bridge that was placed just this week in the lead up to the event. Here comes the 888 Mercedes 10th position for Brock Feeney on his debut. The GT World Challenge.
Can you see Dylan O'Keefe anywhere in there?
Should be somewhere around turn 17, 18. It's a long lap.
It is a long lap.
Here he is. So what's the lap times for the Bostik Audi?
Wow.
2:10, so 3 seconds slower on that lap alone. Gap is out to 47 seconds.
Keen to know what Garth Tander can deliver here. Third place at the moment, 2:08. So Garth is 2 seconds a lap quicker than Dylan O'Keefe, so there could be a fight for second brewing with 8 minutes to go. But they will need some intervention from race control to catch the race leader at the moment, who's back out to 46 seconds. And might I remind you, in a trophy-level car.
Yeah.
An older GT3. We saw Ryan Howe win a race in the GT Championship in Perth in a trophy-level car, essentially the older model GT3. Well, that's very impressive. So rain is the great equaliser, and just getting the right strategy today was key to this race. Dry at the start, wet at the finish. And driving beautifully as well.
And Hobson's still pushing here. I know there's only 7.5 minutes to go.
He's lapped up to 7th.
Maybe he's trying to get the whole field.
What a drive.
He'll at least get up to maybe 6th position, maybe.
I'd love to go diving into the record books for biggest margin of victory. I know that there's one that was over a lap many moons ago, but we haven't had one get this close to 1 minute in a very long time.
Picked up the class win in the AM class back at Phillip Island in race number 2, was on the podium in race number 1, but this is a masterclass. And we picked this from the outset. This car, if we didn't get the safety car earlier, was looking at maybe a minute-and-a-half lead if we didn't get the safety car period. But right now, you'll take 50 seconds any day of the week.
Yeah, he has a 50-second lead, and he lost 30 seconds advantage behind the safety car when that first came out. So that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
If this race had stayed green and we never had that safety car, he could very well have lapped the whole field today.
This car being handled by Garth Walden Racing for 2021. They're a busy outfit out of Sydney. He tested this car back at Sydney Motorsport Park earlier this year. It hadn't run a serious race since the 12-hour last year. Of course, we've seen Hobson in the years in Super 2 competition and Aussie racing cars. But now the 35-year-old out in front at 51 seconds. Here's the margin back to O'Keefe. Tander still third. Ben Porter in 4th position on the slick tyre, so he's just cruising around right now just to get to the end. Taylor is next, and Brad Schumacher. We got a penalty earlier on for the contact with the 38 Aston Martin. Ahead of Rosser, Matt Stupas in 8th, Brock Feeney 9th, and Tony Quinn up into 10th position now. Just over 5.5 minutes of competition remain.
difficult day at the office for the pro drivers. Handed these cars with a fair old deficit to make up. For Garth Tander now just 2 seconds behind Dylan O'Keefe. And last time by 6 seconds quicker. So the fight for second is on. And here goes the fight for second. So Garth Tander versus Dylan O'Keefe. Both raced in the Bathurst 1000 last year. Garth the winner, Dylan the rookie on that occasion. And Garth with all the speed and the fresher tyres for this fight.
I spoke too soon about Brad Schumacher. He's just been given a pit lane penalty for not completing the minimum pit stop time. Not missing the window, but not completing the time. We had an incident at Bathurst which has mossed it. They used a different loop line on the exit during the race, and they got penalised. It was like not even a second difference. It shows you how Hawkeye they're like with these minimum pit stop times, and that's now going to drop him right out of contention.
His rears are cooked on the Bostic Audi. They have been on that car for 55 minutes, of at least which 35 minutes was dry.
It's going to be a very long 4 minutes. I think it's just a matter of time for Garth Tander. Both he and Yasser Shahin, 3 outright victories in season 2021. You're not going to catch Hobson here with 4 minutes to go.
No, but he doesn't need to for the championship, does he?
No.
They are going to extend that lead. He lurches to the right. Not quite there. Hobson potentially about to take championship lead in the GT Trophy Series from Brad Schumacher now that Schumacher's picked up those double penalties in this race so far. And there goes Garth. GT in the GT3 goes to second in the motor race. And O'Keefe will struggle to fight back, but he's not going to go quietly.
Oh.
And he bashes into the side of Garth Tander and spins himself around. That was audacious. On older tyres, tried to fight back straight away, Valentino Rossi style, and has bits hanging off that car.
It hasn't hurt this car at the same time.
Wow.
Here it is in the turn 1. So Tander getting the job done here in turn 1. It's that classic switchback. We go that left-hander at 2, then the change of direction at 3. O'Keefe's done a few laps around here knowing that he could do this, and a clash on the inside and bits and pieces coming off the Bostic Audi. Here it is again, so door opens.
I don't think Garth could possibly have been expecting him to try and fight back, just given the tyre life. He would have thought, oh, well, that's done. I'd love to ask him, I don't want to speak for him. But
there was that curb on the inside that...
Well, he positioned, Garth left the door wide open, probably.
Massively.
That's why it makes me think that he wasn't expecting to try and get him back. Interesting. Bit of drama in this one at the end.
Meantime, it's 54 seconds.
That's a gap for you. 54 seconds. He's lapped all the way up to 7th, which last man on the lead lap at the moment is Brock Feeney. He's doing a pretty good job out there doing 206s, so he's a second quicker than the leader at the moment. Brock Feeney in his GT3 wet debut here today.
Here is Tander. He's in the final turn, while leader is working his way around the back through turn 9 and 10. So let's see what the lap time is. He's not going to catch him. They put a big margin on O'Keefe, who's trying to recover from that spin with less than 2 minutes to go. At 2:07.2, the gap sits at 53 seconds. Hobson to Tander. O'Keefe still runs in third. And Taylor back in 4th position, running pretty much a lonely race at the moment there. He's got about 15 seconds back to Ben Porter, who at one point was looking good for a top 3 in this race. Brad Schumacher has done his pit lane penalty, and the only retiree in this race, Vince Tesoriero, the brand new Audi, who went out early in this race. In fact, has been in the pits for over 22 minutes. Brett Hobson cruises around now, down through turns 15 and 16, the change of direction up the hill and then down to 17. He's going to lap up to 6th position in this race. The timer continues to count down. The pro drivers or driver A's will start tomorrow in the second race of the Fanatec GTWorld Challenge, powered by AWS. Now the final turn sits at 53 seconds. Definitely wet conditions coming up for Armour All qualifying, which follows this. And will this hang around for the day? We know it's a fairly big cell of rain that has been teasing the area. Will it go away in time for race number 1 of the OTR Super Sprint later today? Final lap we're hearing, and it's been a brilliant drive from Brett Hobson. Solo duties in the Nissan. We're starting down the field for today's race in 6th position. Tander ate a little bit away in that last lap, but it's not going to come anywhere near this. O'Keefe will settle for 3rd position and 2nd in the Pro class. Greg Taylor, Rosser, Porter and Feeney, who's come all the way back up into 7th position with that really tough pit stop they had before the mandatory pit stop time started. A safety car that came out early in the race. Came out probably about 5 or 6 minutes too early. And it might have made this guy's lead and victory time margin, call it what you will, well into the minute mark. He powers on down the backside of this Bend Motorsport Park course. He's coming up towards turn number 13. There's some lap cars ahead, but he won't catch them in this time of the race. Brenton Grover's got himself back up to 13th position. Arthur Abrahams will be just ahead of him in this one. Like I said, everyone lapped up to 6th position. Extraordinary drive in what's been a really, really interesting race. Changeable weather. The rain that was expected to hit at the start of the race came later on. This guy maxed out in the pit stop, putting the new wet tyres on at the right time. Well, this rolled the dice at the start, but today, Brett Hobson, he picked up a class win earlier at Phillip Island, but today it's outright victory in the Fanatec GTWorld Challenge in race number 1 of round 3 at the Bend Motorsport Park in South Australia. And then we play the waiting game for 2nd position with Garth Tander, who's coming up towards turn 14. Just ahead is the 9th place car in the race. And it's going to be around 50 odd seconds, but they'll take that and continue to stretch their lead in this year's series. He'll start the car in race number 2 tomorrow. Spent some time getting past Dylan O'Keefe, who fought back but made contact with the Bend Motorsport Park Valvoline 777 Audi. It's going to be 2nd place for Garth Tander and Yasser Shaheen here today in race number 1. The Melbourne Performance Centre team cheer on their man. And here's 3rd place, Dylan O'Keefe, who fell away to some 16 seconds. And he and Tony Bates will collect another podium and 2nd in the Pro class. He takes the checkered flag. Ben Porter's going to collect the AM class honours today in the IMAC Lamborghini. Tony Quinn will be 2nd, and Bill Papadimitriou will complete the top 3. And they'll carry some additional time towards their minimum pit stop time tomorrow in race number 2. Hopefully we'll have drier conditions and sunnier conditions for that one, which comes up in about 24 hours' time. Brett Hobson, the winner here today of race number 1. We take all the highlights. The weather teased us. Several cars rolled the dice and started on the wet Pirelli tyres. In fact, most of them would come home on those tyres. The guys that started on the slicks, that was the first contact between Hobson and Grove down at turn 17. They'll have 2 more incidents during the race. This is the safety car, the one and only we had during the race. For Constantinides in a brand new Audi, who spun himself out of contention there at the final turn. We lost 2 or 3 laps at a really tough time of the race. Triple Eight decided to go to wets before the pit stop window. It was a really messy stop by their standards. And Roland Dane just barking orders at the crew. There'll be some soul searching there for the team tonight. Don't worry, they'll bounce back for race number 2. This was Hobson trying to go past the lap car of Grove during the race. 2 further contacts during the race, but they weren't going to catch him today. 51 seconds was the winning margin in the end from Tander O'Keefe. Speaking of which, this was O'Keefe trying to make the move or repass down here at turn number 3. And I don't think Tander was expecting that, and O'Keefe climbing the curb and spinning himself out of a potential second position. But nobody was catching Brett Hobson. The Nissan too strong as he had some fun on the final lap. And the margin 51 seconds, and the winner of race 1 of the Fanatec GT World Challenge. They'll be back tomorrow for day number 2 of the OTR Super Sprint as we count down. Armour All qualifying is set here soon at the Bend Motorsport Park.
Is that all you got? I only got one question, so is that all you got?
2 minute 5.5.